أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We're going to be discussing the subject of Salah, and we've done it before, so some of us here have been through it. We've been through the verses, but as always, you're always learning. And I think as we discuss it, maybe even for next week, if we should probably carry on a little on it. If you can refer back to the notes when we did it, then we're able to refer to them, or you can contribute from there. Okay. Now the thing of Salah is one of the main contentious issues when you speak of the Quran and you say the Quran is complete and fully detailed. The question that always comes up is, but then how do I know how to read Salah? And I think maybe for this discussion, just to differentiate between the two, we'll use the word namaz when we're talking about the ritual Salah, just for convenience sake. Although it doesn't appear in the Quran, it's an Urdu word, or Persian word actually.
Doesn't even appear in Hadith.
Yeah. Namaz. So when we talk about namaz, we'll be referring to the ritual aspect of it, right? And that the question comes up, like I said, always. It's the first question whenever you talk to people about it. The first thing that comes up is, how do I know how to perform my salah? How do I know how many rakats to make, all this kind of thing?
All the different actions.
The different actions and all that kind of thing, right? Okay. Now, first of all, just to begin with, we've spoken, I'm not going to go into how people read namaz and how it's accepted generally. Okay, there's a few differences or whatever in people read namaz. However, there are Quranic scholars, and I'm talking more modern day Quranic scholars, including Parvez would be called more of a modern era.
20th century.
Yeah, 20th century scholars. So, I'll kind of go through Parvez's stuff, but maybe you can fill us in a little more on Parvez's concept of Salah and things. But there are a few others more recent. Okay, one of them is Edip Yüksel. Okay, so I'm just going to mention very briefly what some of these guys say, and we'll come back to it in the end again. Now, Edip Yüksel is from the thought of the ritual prayer that exists, right? Even though he's a Quran-only scholar, he absolutely rejects hadith.
Even more than us.
Yeah, he wants nothing to do with it. He says you don't even look at some that seem good because there's traps in them. He's totally against hadith. Okay.
Yeah.
However,
and prepared to fight.
He's totally against it. Now, despite this, he finds that Salah is, he calls it contact prayer. That's what they call it. That's one of the meanings people use. Yeah, Rashad Khalifa will have the same translation of contact prayer. And he says basically that, ignorant of the fact that God claimed Quran is complete, he's talking about the general Muslim population, they do not see that all religious practices of submission and monotheism were established and practiced before the Quranic revelation. And he gives some verses here. He also says that messengers after Ibrahim practiced salah prayers, obligatory charity and fasting. Okay? And then just the one other point for him now, how does he get to this concept without going to hadith? Right? He says that verse 16, verse 123, if you want, we can look at it very quickly. Surah 16, verse 123. Now, what he says here is, this is direct proof that all religious practices in Islam were intact when Muhammad was born. Were intact, so they were there when the Rasul was born. All religious practices were intact. I'm going to read Rashad Khalifa's translation here. He says, then we inspired you to follow the religion of Abraham, the monotheist. He never was an idol worshipper. Now I don't have the Arabic here. I don't know if someone can just read it quickly.
Summa or Haida, Dileka.
16:123. That's important to understand. Summa Ohena Ilayka anit tabi millata Ibrahim hanifa.
Yeah.
Wa ma kana min al-mushrikin.
Yeah.
He was not of the mushriks.
Yeah.
It's very important. That is very important when we study the life of Ibrahim.
So to follow the millah of Ibrahim, okay, millata Ibrahim,
Millata Ibrahim.
which Rashad Khalifa has translated as religion, Yusuf Ali has translated as the ways of Abraham,
yeah.
the true in faith. So what he's saying is that these practices were intact. Okay. Then he goes on to say, if I ask you to ride a bicycle, it is assumed that you know what the bicycle is and you know or learn from others how to ride it. Yeah, so similarly, when God enjoined Muhammad to follow the practices of Ibrahim, such practices must have been well known. I just wanted to point this out. So, from a Quran-only scholar, there exists this idea that the ritual prayer is there, and you don't need to go to Hadith because it's been kept intact by Allah somehow. That's what they believe, that Allah has protected this ritual salah through the ages.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what Sophie and
Yes, that's right. The same idea.
You don't need to go to the Hadith. They believe that it's been protected by.
Can I just come in here? The word Hanif or Ahnaf.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Prophet was also one of them before revelation came to him.
I think what you're saying is correct from a historical point of view.
Yeah.
In the Quran, the Prophet is not referred to. But from a historic point of view, people like Abu Bakr, Ali, Abdurrahman bin Auf, those who were not into idol worship, and were close to the Nabi and were also in a way searching for the truth, were regarded as Hanif.
So you can say they were upright. The upright ones.
Yeah, the righteous ones. The upright ones.
Would you say they were following Nabi Ibrahim's
well, they didn't
example?
know about it then. They didn't know about it.
Oh.
But until the Quran was revealed, they didn't know about it.
So this practice became blurry.
It was just
You know what? We're going to lose the whole thing.
Alright, okay.
Let's keep the.
I just want to make a point about the Hanif.
We agree that the guy will give the
Yeah, I
topic.
think that's better.
I think just.
Okay, then there's a guy by the name of Mirghani Hamid, also a Quran only. Mirghani Hamid. Okay, I'm not sure if he's famous or not, but or if he's well known. But he understands Salah to mean the commitment. He says, I understand the commitment as the engagement and the service of man as God's vicegerent. Now, we're not going to get into that, okay? In this sense, the commitment represents the bondage and tie. The true relation of man as God's vicegerent towards God and as his creator and the owner of all that is in the heavens and on earth, who set man to be the vicegerent. In this light, the commitment is also the following close of the vicegerent to God, his master. Now, I find it difficult reading because I can't use that vicegerent anymore. It doesn't roll off my tongue anymore. But either way, so what he's saying is he sees it as this commitment to Allah. This following closely the law of Allah. And this, I think, is generally, in terms of Parvez, has the same concept of it. It's this commitment of and he used the Shu'aib thing and Surah 107 to look at it. And so he sees it as a commitment or a bond that is there. Okay?
So that's in no way coming in with the Namaz part.
Well, look,
it's the definition of it.
Yeah, it's a definition, his definition of Salah. And I'll come back to him later on whether...
What's his name? Hamid.
Yeah, Mirghani Hamid. Okay? And then there are some people, well, I'm going to come to the other guys at a later stage, okay, towards the end of it. Then there's some people who look at it as, I just want to give a meaning of turning towards. They see Salah as meaning to turn towards, as opposed to turning away. Okay? Because there is, the verse is, you know what, I'll come back to it because I'm going to discuss it at a later stage. But they see Salah as meaning turning towards as opposed to turning away. Okay, because there's a set of verses that actually show that. Okay, it puts one in opposition to the other. So there are different understandings among Quran-only people, and this has been a bit of a problem for generally. It's been a problem in that among the Quran-only community, the Salah has come across as different meanings to different people. Although there's a connection, there's some connection, and one of the problems I've always had, even in terms of when maybe Aziz, if you, when it comes to Parvez, I understand that he says it's a following closely, right? Or
no, he does say that.
Right.
He says that Salah literally means the space where the tail of a horse comes out of the horse.
Yeah, actually I've got that,
Right? That's what is Salah. Which means that we are supposed to follow the law of Allah so closely that it resembles the tail that comes out of the horse. And then he goes further to say that those who follow the law, right, in relation to the horse, are the musalli.
Yeah.
Right? So if there are two horses running, and the one horse is just in level with the first horse, then the second horse is a musalli.
Okay. Yeah, no,
And following the law so closely.
Coming to the first side.
That's right, yeah.
You must be at the front.
Well, that's in the whole concept of imam and all kinds of things.
okay, yeah, so the difficulty for me with a lot of these explanations regarding Salah has always been that they may be too general. So that it, like that definition covers everything. Okay.
It's concrete.
It covers everything. So it's a very wide definition. Okay, so we'll come back to this. What I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to go through some verses because I picked up kind of a pattern in terms of the meanings of Salah in the context that they mentioned in the Quran. So if we can start by turning to Surah 2 verse 41. So I'll go through this and we can discuss it, and then we'll go back to a general discussion at the end and try and get something, because one of the issues with Salah is that whatever Salah is, we know that it must be done.
41?
And Surah 2 verse 41. So whatever it is, it must be done. And for someone to say that Salah is not the ritual prayer is fine, but then what is it, and it must be done, right? I'm supposed to get Surah 2 verse 41.
43.
No, but from 41.
Oh, I see the discussion from the start.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وآمنوا بما أنزلت مصدقا لما معكم ولا تقولوا أول كافر به ولا يشتروا بآيات ثمنا قليلا وإياي فاتقون. Then 42 and 43 I'm going to read ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل وتكتموا الحق وأنتم تعلمون وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واركعوا مع الراكعين. Now, what he's telling us in the first verse is that, well, the verse before that is addressing Bani Israel, okay? And it's saying that they must fulfill their covenant to Allah, and Allah has fulfilled the covenant to them, and they must fulfill the covenant to Allah. And it says, and believe in, I'm reading Yusuf Ali, and believe in what I reveal, confirming the revelation which is with you. And be not the first to reject faith therein, nor sell my signs for a small price, and fear me and me alone. Now 42, and cover not truth with falsehood, nor conceal the truth when you know. And aqimu salah wa atu zakah warka'u ma'ar raki'in. Now the notes I've made here on this is that in 41 and 42 it's saying believe in what is revealed to you and do not sell out, basically. Don't sell my signs for a cheap price. Okay? And it says, do not mix truth with falsehood or hide the truth. And what I want you to take note of here is that it says, do not mix truth with falsehood. Okay? And then it says, Aqimu salah wa atu zakah warka'u ma'ar rafi'in. Okay? And I'm going to go through a few verses before I get to what I'm saying here. If we look now at Surah 9, verse 102.
You should have actually started with first year.
Yeah, I explained.
Oh.
It's addressing Bani Israel, yeah, I said, yeah.
And then the covenant part.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Our covenant is occurring.
Yeah, but I'm okay. 102, yeah, 102. Okay, now here we find that, okay, 102, got it then. وآخرون اعترفوا بذنوبهم خلطوا عملا صالحا وآخر سيئا عسى الله أن يتوب عليهم إن الله غفور رحيم خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصل عليهم إن صلاتك سكن لهم والله سميع عليم. Now, Allah is telling us again, those who mixed a good deed with an evil deed, okay, but they acknowledge their mistake, okay, what must you do? You must take sadaqah from them. It says you will clean tahara. There's more meaning to it, but just to simplify it, you will clean and purify them. Tahara and tuzakihim, I think it says, right?
Yeah.
And salla them. Okay, and the Arabic therefore says, pray for them.
The English is unfortunately
Yeah. Okay, and salah for them. And then it says, surely your salah brings sakana, which is a peace on them.
It's a huge
Peace and tranquility to them. Okay? Now, it's clear here that this is not a salah that's been made to Allah. If you understand what I'm saying. Salah is something that can be done among people. Okay, salah is something that can be done among people. But for what I'm getting at here, the first verse where it says, do not, those who mixed a good deed with an evil deed. The first set of verses says, don't mix truth with falsehood. Okay, before it mentions the salah here and the zakah. Here it's saying, those who mixed a good deed with an evil deed. What do you do? There's sadaqah that comes in, there's the, and the salah that comes in. Okay?
The salawat. See, the first is the salawat, the salli alayhi.
Yeah, the first is salli alayhi. Yeah. So it says that the salah will bring peace and tranquility to them. Okay, your salah is, I think it says your salah, referring to the Nabi, will be a source of peace and security.
What will the salah be for them?
Yeah, well that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm just going to go through a few more, right? Okay. Now then there's a few more groups of verses. I'm going to mention it to you and we'll choose one of them to go through. The one is Surah 5 verse 12 and 13. You can write it down. The other one is Surah 6 verse 91 and 92. And Surah 11 verse 110 to 114.
Verse 6,
6, 91 and 92. And Surah 11 verse 110 and 114. We can turn to it, but I don't want to go through all of them because it takes too much time. In Surah 5 verse 12, it's again speaking of the covenant with Bani Israel. Okay? And if you look at it, you find that this covenant includes the concept of Aqimu Salah wa Atu Zakah. It's included in the covenant. Okay, from my understanding of it. Then in verse 13 it says the breaking of the covenant, it shows that the breaking of the covenant included altering words from their places and neglecting a portion of the reminder, which would be the revelation. So Aqimu Salah wa Atu Zakah was part of this covenant. Okay, and the breaking, when they broke the covenant, it shows that the breaking of the covenant has to do with altering words from their places and neglecting a portion of the reminder. So again, we get an idea with the salah here coming through of not taking everything that's there, mixing truth with falsehood. Okay, and things are getting jumbled up basically. In that situation, if you carry on that course, you don't know what is the truth and what is the falsehood, even from the revelation. And that's what happened. I mean, that's what happened with all the revelations. That's what's happening with Muslims with the Quran, is that with the introduction of hadith, it's all becoming a jumble. You don't know what is truth and what is falsehood. The other sets of verses are similar in the sense that in 6, 91 and 92, it says that the revelation is scattered into portions so that much of it is neglected of the reminder, which again would be the revelation, and nobody has the full story. You know, it's similar to the concept of divide and rule. If you divide people, you can rule them. If you take the revelation and you cut it up into pieces, and let this one learn about that piece, let that one learn about that piece, nobody has the full story. It's all getting jumbled up. Even in the Surah 11 verse 110 to 114, it says there's differences that arose in the revelation of Musa. And the reader is told to continue in the right way as commanded and don't incline to those who do wrong. And then Aqim as-Salah. That which is good removes that which is evil. So in terms of the revelation of Nabi Musa, the Quran speaks of these mix-ups, these mixing of the truth with the falsehood, which was the problem. The reason revelation was required after that is to set these things right. Okay? And it's mentioned with the Salah again. Now, the reason I mention these verses is because what it has in common, and some of the others that I'll mention just now, is that there's the Salah is definitely the following of the law of Allah. Okay? But at the same time, the Salah is also, there's that concept of the Salah of meeting for the purpose of Salah. It's quite clear in the Quran that you have to meet for the Salah. It's something where you meet. It's possible that it can be done on its own, which I'll discuss later, but there's this meeting for Salah. So it has to be a little more specific, I thought. We can say that it is following the law of Allah closely, but that's very, very general. So when we are meeting, what are we doing? What are we doing specifically? And it seems to me through these verses and the others that I've looked at, is that I think the Salah really is there to keep the purity of the message there. Because what happens, it's the pattern. The Rasul or the Nabi comes with the revelation, he gives the message, he dies, and it gets distorted. That's been a continuous pattern. And I think that an aspect of the Salah definitely has to do with this, is that you are told that you must be vigilant and constant about keeping the purity of that message. And when it talks about Aqimu Salah wa Atu Zakah, in the more specific terms, I think it means that you have to make sure that you are always keeping the purity of the message there. Because if you don't keep the purity of the message there, then things go wrong. And that is the Salah, getting together to make sure on any concept that it is there. And the Atu Zakah, I think, it may not be the complete meaning of it, but I'm just trying to get an aspect in here quickly before we discuss it, is that an aspect of Atu Zakah is that purity of the message must then be put into action for what we spoke about of uplifting everyone, of making sure that the community is uplifted, making sure that playing field is level, making sure that everybody benefits and everybody moves up. And it's only through ensuring that the purity of the message is preserved that you can do this. Okay, so I agree almost 100% with, in my understanding, with what Pervez says about Salah. I think that sometimes the problem people have with his understanding is the way he's explained it is very general and very big. And I think if we look into it a little more, and
Really more.
yeah,
we say.
and if you look into the verses more, you find the details. You find these details, like I've picked this up, for example. You find these details that all fit into that concept, into that big concept. But there are specific things that you do in order to uphold that system and the laws of Allah. And that's what I think Salah is. And again, I will come back to this. I just wanted to give an idea before we go into discussing generally. Now, the other thing that comes through Salah is mentioned where there's a division of parties. If you want to make note, Surah 7 verse 168 to 170, it's about, when people are divided into parties and the same thing about trying to get the purity of the message, the way I understand it. Then there's a set of verses, Surah 14, verse 28 to 31.
What? 14?
28 to 31. Okay. And then Surah 30, verse 30 to 32, talks of that the correct deen is Allah's natural law, and there's no altering His creation. That's Deen al-Qayyim. And turn
30 to 32.
Yeah, Surah 30 verse 30 to 32. But you can look at that yourself. I don't want to go through all of it. Another reference is Surah 98 verse 1 to 5 is interesting to look at. And Surah 33 verse 33 is the one that the Shias love. Right? It's the one about the Ahlul Bayt. Right? Now, you can turn to that one, Surah 33 verse 33. Let's just look at that one quickly before we move on.
What surah?
Surah 33 verse 33.
That's when we talk about the booty.
No, it's about the Ahlul Bayt. Now in this verse, we can go through the Arabic when you guys get there. It speaks that another thing here is, it says the women of the Nabi. Okay, it doesn't say the wives of the Nabi. The women of the Nabi are told to aqim as-salah, aqimna as-salah, wa atina az-zakah, wa atina Allah wa Rasul. Okay, so it's instructing the women of the Nabi that they must institute the salah, the zakah, and they must obey Allah and His Rasul. And it says that by this Allah only wants to take uncleanness away from the Ahlul Bayt through purification, generally is what it's saying. So again, this process of salah, zakah, and following the law has got to do, and this is what the purpose I find of salah to be, is to remove anything that is false and to purify. And it comes through in this verse, as well as I'll give you a few more references. 35:18, salah is mentioned as a form of purification. 87 verse 14 and 15, again, that he is successful who purifies himself. And how does he purify himself? By remembering his Rabb and then does the salah. Okay. And maybe just one last thing before we discuss it for now is Surah 5 verse 106 and 108 to 108. Now this, you can go there, but this is the verse where Allah says that, when you're going to die, when death approaches you, you must make a will, or you must take two witnesses, etc. And it said that the two witnesses, detain them ba'da salah, after the salah. Okay? Detain the two witnesses after salah, and if there is any dispute regarding the will, then you sort it out. And I found this interesting because with all these other verses I mentioned, I see the same thing here, that the salah would be sitting down with these two witnesses and trying to see, and stating what the law of Allah says regarding inheritance, whatever the case may be, and then using that to solve the dispute. In other words, if there is a dispute, trying to resolve what is true from what is false. Okay? Now that's my understanding of the concept of Salah at this point in time. I understand it as a process that is essential in making sure that the truth is separated from the falsehood and it is clarified. All right, and that fits into most of the definitions of the Quranic scholars. I think it's just something I picked up as a common thread in the Salah verses, and there's so many. I haven't looked in detail at every one of them, but a whole lot of them have this common thread of purification in the Salah, and that it's a process of purification, of not just purification, but when there's a mixture of truth and falsehood, determining what is true and what is false. The Salah is a process of determining and sifting out the truth from the falsehood. There are a few other things to discuss on the Salah, but we'll get to that afterwards. So, just with what I've said and the general concept on the Salah and what is understood by Salah, maybe we can just go around, because we've discussed Salah already, and we can all give input in terms of what we think Salah is and how it works. So I don't know where we want to start. Oh, yeah, maybe we can do it that way. Not everyone wants to contribute. Yeah.
Anybody?
A word come to mind about Salah. In the Salah Tanha and the Fahsha wa Munkar. Your Salah should prevent you from evil deeds or going astray.
Yeah.
So that might be one of the criteria that we use to establish whether our Salah is correct.
Yeah, I think that's true, because that's one, when you're trying to find the purpose of Salah, that's an important one, is that because the Salah must prevent you from doing what is evil, and you must be doing what is good. So I think that's true, that is a criterion.
Whether it is a broader concept like Iman is talking about, or the sideline issue of the ritual Salah, put it together. If it doesn't prevent you from the evil and takes you towards good, then it's been a total waste of time. Right? Because following the law of Allah means following the positive aspects of the Quran and keeping away from the negative and encouraging the same thing with others.
So how do we establish the correctness of the Salah?
The law.
Yeah, if we are doing good, that means we're doing our Salah right.
Yeah.
I think, look, if we're talking about Salah, are you talking about the ritual namaz as well, or in a broad?
Yeah, we try to distinguish the ritual namaz, the end product of it, compared to the, the right.
Okay, so if you are performing the ritual Salah, the namaz, and you find yourself doing what is good and moving away from what is evil, that's good and that's right. The question you need to ask is, are you moving away from what is evil and towards what is good because of the ritual Salah, or because you studying the Quran and seeing what is right and what is wrong? What is it that is actually taking you away from evil and moving to good? I think that's the question that needs to be asked. I mean, for me personally, and the views are a little different within the group also, but for me, I can't see that ritual Salah at all. I can't see it at all. Although I don't see anything wrong, I don't see any sin in doing it.
Can we take the Salah in isolation from the Zakah? They seem to go together, and the one complements the other.
Yeah, no, I think they do.
The one upholds the other.
For me,
it's inseparable.
Yeah. Okay, look, I think let's give others a chance, but just to answer your question, the word Salah appears in its different derivatives in the Quran 108 times. As Salah, it appears 67 times. With Zakat, it appears 29 times. So you cannot separate the issues, right? It's how we understand it, and I'll come to it later on, but let's see what others have to say.